everyone. My name is Melinda, and I'm a teaching artist and historical interpreter here at the Fraser. So throughout the following weeks, we're going to introduce some virtual content for you guys. So make sure to check out our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. We're going to have something for you on almost every channel. And let us know what you think too. Make sure to comment below, give us your thoughts, keep on watching. In the meantime, you might be wondering why I'm dressed the way that I am. We're currently in our Southern Exposition Gallery. This was all about the late 1800s here in Louisville, Kentucky, but at the time, this was a period that affected the rest of the nation too, particularly because of one of my favorite artifacts in the museum, bicycles. So here next to me, we have a high-wheeler. This was introduced here in the States in about 1878 by a man named Augustus Pope. Now, Augustus was from Boston, and he had a manufacturing company that made things like shoes and metal fastenings. And one day he traveled to the Philadelphia Exposition. Expositions in the 1800s were a big deal. They were kind of like World's Fairs, and everybody would go to see what the new technology would be. And so it was a really big deal. We even had one here in Louisville too. Well, he goes to the Philadelphia Exposition, just like a lot of people, and sees this masterpiece. Now, a lot of people at the time wrote it off and they thought, how can you even ride something like that? But he noticed that it could outpace a horse. At the time, this was the fastest a human being could go. So he fell in love with it and wanted to introduce it here in the United States by marketing it far and wide. He wanted everybody to be riding one of these. So there were a couple problems with riding a high-wheeler, or what we also term ordinaries. As you can see, they're a little bit cumbersome. They were also crazy expensive. You had to have a lot of money to be able to afford one of these. And also, we didn't have paved roads yet, so your ride could be a little bit bumpy. So he decided that he would transform his entire manufacturing company into a bicycle manufacturing company. And not only that, he was going to open a riding school so he could invite all of his friends to come and take high wheel lessons there in Boston, where he had set up shop. And he also created his own newspaper. He wanted to convince the public that everybody should be riding, and this would help petition local governments to pave their roads and develop the landscape so that these would make a little more sense. So later on in the 1890s, that's when bicycles became a little bit more familiar. They were called safety bicycles, and they're basically the same model that we ride today. Now, a lot of the inventions that were created for this bicycle, we still kind of take for granted. For example, in 1893, safety bikes swept the country and everybody fell in love with that style. And the reason is, of course, because they were much easier to ride. New inventions were being created by women, and these inventors had women in mind when they were creating for the bike, meaning the bicycle emancipated women, meaning that it freed them socially. This was the first time women could leave their house by themselves, either to go shopping, to the park, or to work, without a male chaperone to accompany them. It also led to an ushering in of brand new styles of dress, like women being able to wear practical clothing. No more big hoop skirts or big poofy dresses or anything like that. Now you could wear bloomers, or you could wear divided skirts, or even better, the main fashion of the day was called rational dress, meaning you could wear just a basic skirt with a petticoat and boots covered with gaiters to protect your outfit from the mud. Often that ensemble would be topped off with a little boater hat, which looked pretty fashionable, honestly. And more importantly, though, besides the fashion aspect, this allowed women to get to work by themselves, and it led to women's health being put in the national spotlight as well. Beforehand, nobody particularly cared about women's medicine or women's health or being able to get out of the house and get fresh air, so the safety bike actually contributed to social reform, which would later lead to women's suffrage and women being able to vote. So today I'm dressed as Tillie Anderson. Tillie Anderson was the world's women's champion for cycling during her day, which would have been in the 1890s. Women's bicycle racing was the most popular sport in the 1890s next to baseball. Here in Kentucky, we had quite a bit of racing actually, and Louisville was on the national racing circuit. These races were a really big deal. They would draw over 5,000 people per race, and Tillie set so many records that she was almost impossible to keep up with. She was a Swedish immigrant and originally came to Chicago when she first moved to the US, and she and her counterparts became almost household names. They were celebrities in their own right. And they traveled from city to city, drawing these crowds, getting amazing write-ups in the paper, and as I mentioned, she broke a lot of records as well. Women's racing only lasted about 6 years, and the reason was because even though this was the first time we saw women in athletics on a professional level, this led to the rise of the automobile. It led to a couple of racers being seriously injured on the track, and finally, people were looking for new, fresh, exciting things to go and see. So baseball got really popular, and stock car racing, etc. So that's part of the reason why women's racing fell out of favor. But it is important to know just how much it transformed not only women's rights, but American athletics as they stand today. A really cool fact about women's bicycle racing is that a woman cyclist was the very first athlete in this country to get a sponsorship by a company. And Tillie Anderson was no different. The Excelsior Manufacturing Company actually sponsored her to ride their model called a Thistle to represent them in other races throughout starting, I think, 1896. And they even gave her bonus prizes if she won the race. Now you'll notice, as a part of this Thistle, which was wonderfully loaned to us by the Kentucky Wheelmen and the Peddlers Bicycle Museum in Missouri, that this model has no brakes. So I'm gonna give this a spin and we'll see if I can stop. Gotta get it ready. The way to stop is to carefully pedal backwards and try to keep your balance. Off-end racers would need help getting off the track by their trainers, and at the start line, they'd have their trainers hold the bars for them until the pistol went off. So here is the Thistle. It's a lot of fun to ride, although a little scary without brakes. So thank you for watching, and from our Fraser family to yours, we're going to be bringing you some more amazing virtual content over the next few days. So please stay tuned on all of our social media channels, and we'll see you tomorrow.